Hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and this might be one of the coolest cameras ever made. This is an SX-70 Sonar, a Polaroid SX-70 Sonar. Now recently I did a video on this. This is my Sun 660 autofocus box camera. This shoots 600 Polaroid film, and it was from 1981, I believe. It was something that I just kind of bought on a whim on eBay, and I was really enjoying taking pictures of this, so I started doing more research on Polaroid, more research on Polaroid cameras, and I discovered the SX-70. I started becoming kind of obsessed with the SX-70. This, like I said, is the Sonar model, but the original SX-70 came out in 1972, and it was the first Polaroid camera to shoot this integral film, the stuff that we're all familiar with when we think of Polaroids, with the nice square picture, the white border. And I started doing a lot of research on the founder of Polaroid, the inventor of the SX-70, Dr. Edwin Land. I even got this nice Life magazine issue from 1972. I think this is October 27th, 1972. Purchased this on eBay, and you can see him holding the original SX-70 there. Came with a tan leather finish. Looks like it's chrome. It's not actually chrome. This is just chrome covered plastic on these models. But I just went into this giant rabbit hole of Polaroid cameras and SX-70s, and I decided I need an SX-70. So I started doing research, discovered the SX-70 Sonar. We'll talk about that Sonar in a minute. We kind of already have, because there is a Sonar autofocus system on the Sun 600. You can see this gold disc here. It's actually a sonar emitter, uses the sound waves that it bounces off of objects, receives that, and then is able to determine the distance of the object, and that's how it gets its autofocus. The SX-70 Sonar was the first Polaroid camera to have that sonar autofocus included. You can see the sonar module on the top there. And so I decided I wanted an SX-70 Sonar, started doing all sorts of research, and I found one on eBay that was untested. The seller didn't know if it worked or not, and it was very cheap. And I decided I would take a gamble. I would grab it and then probably get it refurbished, maybe send it away to have somebody work on it. You can see it has this green leather skin on it now. This is not the original leather. It comes with a black leather finish normally. So I got the camera in the mail. The autofocus didn't seem to be working at all. And so I did some more research, contacted a couple people, found a very cool guy on Instagram. He goes by Dr. SX-70. He's located in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I contacted him. We talked about prices. We talked about things that he might do to the camera. And I decided to send it away to him. Before I sent it away, though, I shot a video, and I think I'll show that to you now. It basically was the condition of the camera before I sent it away to be refurbished. So here we are back in time when I received the SX-70 Sonar. You can see that on first glance, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. Pretty clean, not a bunch of dings or dents or anything. It did have this. This leather is actually coming up. It's nice and clean underneath though, so it'd actually be pretty easy to replace that and put on a new skin. But anyway, if we pop it open, everything seems good. The bellows look good. Doesn't look like there's any rips, no tears. First thing I noticed when I press the film door opener, it does not just easily fall open. You actually have to open it like that. Other ones I've seen, it'll just drop open quite easily. This one does not. So that's a little stuck. When I put a cartridge in, when I first got it, this is a cartridge that I just shoved some Polaroids inside, but it has the batteries in there. You place it in, it fits a little tightly. And then when you close, it does eject. Pretend this is the dark slide. The problem that I found with it though is the autofocus unit here. Oh, it's working. Is it actually working? That's weird. This has never worked before. This was totally dead when I would try to half press the autofocus. I would not get anything from it at all, which is quite interesting. Now it seems as though maybe it's working. Basically what I was going to tell you is that I had to shoot everything in manual mode because the autofocus wouldn't work. And when I tried to press down the shutter in autofocus, it wouldn't actually take a picture. So I would hit this button here to go into manual mode, focus manually, and then when I depress the shutter, it would actually work, like so. But now, strangely, let's go back into autofocus mode and see what's happening. It seems like it might actually be working. I might have to do a little bit more research here and see, like, look through the viewfinder. Hold on. Yeah, the autofocus is working perfectly now. Not sure exactly what that means. I think I am still going to set it in to be refurbished and, you know, just get everything cleaned and lubricated and everything taken care of, just so if it is working properly, then at least we can hopefully keep it working properly. I took some test shots with this. The only SX-70 film I could find was black and white. That's another reason why I kind of want to convert it to 600, because that's just easier to find. But when I shot with the black and white, it was a really, really dark, overcast day. And I was actually placing the exposure compensation about 1 notch here into the dark, because I had heard that the modern SX-70 film is lighter than the original SX-70 film. So I thought that would mean that I had to make the exposures darker. But I'll grab those photos so you can see it didn't quite work out. And I don't know if that's just because it was so dark and overcast, if it was a combination of the camera being old and needing servicing and cleaning and things like that. But basically the exposure was not good on any of the pictures. I was trying to do some moody landscapes, but I don't know if it was maybe just exposing more for the sky. Even though the sky was very overcast, it was definitely brighter than the pieces or the things in the foreground that I was trying to get, but I just get no detail here whatsoever, so it was really underexposed on all of these. And maybe that's a result of the camera needing servicing. Maybe it's just me figuring out how to use this camera with black and white film and the exposure compensation dial, but everything was super underexposed. So anyway, kind of surprising news that it seems as though the autofocus is working now. Yeah, it seems to be working. That's interesting. So I guess I'll let the doctor know before I send this off to him. But that's cool. Maybe it's not going to need as much work as I thought. So there you go. The Sonar Autofocus did end up working, but it needed to be cleaned, it needed to be lubricated. I mean, it was a 45-year-old camera, so it needed some work done to it. So I sent it away to Jeremy, Dr. SX-70 in Albuquerque, and he converted it to 600 film for me. These originally shot the SX-70 film, which the modern Polaroid SX-70 is, I believe, 160 ISO, and then I can't remember, there are too many film speeds and different film stocks and everything running through my head right now, but I believe the original Polaroid was a slower film for the SX-70. The modern stuff is about 160 or 170 ISO. The 600 film is 640 ISO, I believe. And so I wanted this converted to 640 so I could have a little more versatility with it. I'd be able to shoot it indoors occasionally. So he did that for me, gave it a good cleaning, checked everything out. He stripped the old skin off for me. I ordered my own leather that I could put on this, and I got it back. And basically this video is kind of an introduction to this camera. I plan on doing a full review as a viable camera. Is a 45-year-old Polaroid instant film camera still viable? Is it something that is worth purchasing and using on a regular basis? But these are just my first impressions of this camera. So let me show you the party trick that this camera can do. You can see it's this nice little compact shape. If you grab right here, there are some grippy bits on the back of this viewfinder area. If you grab here, lift up, you have a folding single lens reflex camera. Extremely cool. I think it's one of the most beautiful cameras I have ever seen in my life. I love the design. Jeremy put on a green shutter button for me when I had it refurbished. So it uses a bellows design. There's a camera in here that actually flips up when you're taking the picture. The big thing with this for me though is the fact that it is an SLR. Like with these box cameras, they're viewfinder cameras. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, you're not actually looking through the lens. So it makes framing a little more difficult. These also have plastic lenses, so maybe not the sharpest things in the world, even though I've gotten some good results with the Polaroid Sun 660. This has a, I believe, 4-element lens. I think it's 116 millimeters. I'm gonna know all this stuff when I do a full review, but it's a glass lens. It has this sonar autofocus, which I will demonstrate to you now. If you do a half press of the shutter button, it will focus. And you can also do manual focus. If you flick this little switch here, so that the red is showing, that means you can now do manual focus. And the lens will actually move as you focus. If you flick it back into autofocus, it'll automatically go back to infinity. So I just thought it would be a really cool camera to try to get into more Polaroid photography with. I got a taste for it with the Sun 660, but I wanted something that was kind of a step up. And I think I've really got it with this camera. There was one unfortunate thing when this was sent back to me. The post office, in all their glory, they battered the box around quite a bit, and I actually got a big chunk broken out of this autofocus module or this housing. So I had to try to send away to get a new front plate for this, or front cover. That's gonna be a while because I had to order it from China. So it'll eventually be coming, but right now I actually have it glued and taped up. You wouldn't really know if you just took a glance at it, but it's not perfect. I wanted it to be perfect. It will be perfect eventually, but I just love this thing. Because the old Polaroid film had 10 exposures in it, and the new Polaroid film has 8 exposures, your film counter on the back will be wrong. So when you put a film pack in, it'll say 10, even though there are only 8 pictures remaining. So right now I'm showing 4, meaning I still have 2 pictures left in this film pack, so I'm not gonna show you, I'm not gonna waste the pictures by, you know, hitting the shutter button and letting you see the film actually eject, because it's expensive to shoot these things now. Black and white film is about 20 bucks for 8 exposures, so a little bit over $2 an exposure. The color film is a little bit cheaper, but you're still close to about $2 per exposure. So you really need to pick and choose what you're trying to take pictures of. That was another thing that kind of appealed to me about this, is that I just wanted something that made me think a little bit more. When you have a digital camera, you can just snap, 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 which is great. That's very useful, but I just wanted to slow down a little bit. I love the idea of working with film, but I didn't want to have to send film away to get processed. With an instant camera, you have the picture immediately. And look at this thing. It is just absolutely gorgeous. You can fold it up. There's a little lever here. If you press back, push down, push the viewfinder down, and there you have this beautiful little compact form. The SX-70 Sonar model comes with strap lugs for a camera strap and a tripod mount. The original SX-70 did not have those things. That's another reason why I wanted the Sonar version. But then I sent it away to Jeremy. He did an amazing job. If you are looking to get an SX-70 refurbished, check out Jeremy. He is Dr. SX-70 on Instagram. Maybe I'll even put a link to his Instagram below. He was amazingly reasonably priced compared to the places like Retrospect and Brooklyn Film Camera, who also do refurbishing for SX-70s. And he did it in a day, which is insane. Not saying that that will be the case for everyone. I'm sure he might get backed up every once in a while, but it was amazing service and he was great just for communication and everything. So definitely recommend Dr. SX-70. But let me show you some of the photos I've taken. I still haven't totally gotten my head around this camera, how the exposure compensation works, how I should set things for different shooting situations, if it's really bright sunlight, if it's overcast. I don't have a flash for it yet, so I haven't done really any indoor photography. Even with the 600 film speed, I think I would need a flash for most indoor applications. But I went out and did a little walk today, and I took some shots, and I think I'll turn the camera around and show you how they turned out. So here's the first picture I took with the Color 600 film. Remember, this has been modified to take 600 film now. And you can see that I have a very underexposed foreground. I wasn't able to frame it exactly level either. Just trying to get used to the viewfinder and everything. So basically it exposed correctly for the sky, but then the foreground was too dark. So I'm learning that if I'm taking a picture of something against the sky, and this was a pretty bright day, I'm gonna need to hit that exposure compensation dial. Let me show that to you again. This little dial here. Will it focus? Yes. You can go like so to add brightness to the picture or darken the picture a little bit. I'm going to have to be using that when I'm shooting against a sky. So live and learn. Next picture here ended up being exposed pretty well. You can see the sky looks pretty good. The foreground here is still a little dark, but I think it exposed well for the actual art on the fence there. And it looks nice and sharp. I'm really liking the look of this lens. Next, I attempted a self-portrait, and it kind of worked. Maybe a little dark, but again, it seems like it's exposing. When you have really high contrast and areas of real dark shadow and real bright light, it seems like it struggles a little bit to get the perfect exposure, but I kind of like this. It looks kind of moody. I look like a doofus, but other than that, not bad. This one turned out pretty well. I think I upped the exposure compensation dial at least one notch to get this. And I think everything is exposed pretty well here. Maybe slightly blown out over there, but otherwise not bad. And I really do like the look of the color. I like the sharpness of this lens. I think it looks really good. So I was really happy with that one. I mean, the composition is whatever, but as far as just kind of learning the lens, not bad. Here I was attempting to use manual focus to take a picture through this chain link fence. And again, the sky is exposed really well. I can't remember how I had this exposure compensation dial set. The boat in the background I think is exposed pretty good, but once again, there's kind of these closer elements that are a little bit underexposed. But I think it's a pretty good balance of exposing the things that I would want to be exposed properly. And I do like there is some depth of field here. You can get that blurry foreground here with the chain link fence. If I tried to use autofocus on this, it would focus on the fence and I wouldn't be able to get the boat in the background. So I switched it to manual and did that. This shot is the first black and white photograph that I took. And here I was downtown and I was assuming because I had these areas of sunlight, I would have to overexpose a little bit on the compensation dial to get some of this in properly exposed, but the whole thing, there was just too much contrast, I think, between the bright sections and the dark sections, and it didn't turn out great. Not horrible, but not great. This one was a little better, but again, I think maybe I could have upped the exposure just slightly. I think I left this one in the middle because the sun was behind me. Maybe, I can't even remember the situation or what the situation was like when I was taking this. Maybe I did try to underexpose this a little bit or overexpose this a little bit. I can't remember, but it's still maybe a little too dark there. Obviously it's gonna blow the sky out entirely if I get this exposed properly, but not a bad balance there. And again, I just like the look of the lens and I like the look of the black and white and the color film for this as well. Here got really messed up. I was taking this picture through a glass window. And so I switched to manual focus to get the little skeleton in the chair there, and you can see the reflections of the cars and everything behind it. But the light was really hitting the window, and then I think on this one I did leave the exposure compensation dial in the middle, and a lot of things just got blown out. I think there was too much light reflecting off the glass. Interesting, but not exactly what I was going for. This one, the sky is good. This is a little blown out, and then this is way too dark. So again, these high contrast areas, it's hard to get a perfect exposure. But again, I kind of like the look of it. This one is exposed pretty much right. We have the side of this building here, there's the sky above. You see these kind of weird, interesting areas. I don't know if that's where I like touch the film or if that's just where the developer doesn't spread all the way every time. But I'm shooting through this fountain that's not supposed to be in focus, and I was focusing on the Welcome to the Fountain District sign behind it. And I think it works. Again, I'm just trying to figure out the exposure settings and all that stuff right now. Composition is kind of important, but not as important. And then I tried to do one last self-portrait there, and again, you can see how much contrast there is in this. The light was shining on one side of my face. The other side is completely in shadow. You can still pick up some of the detail in the shadows there, so it's not totally destroyed. And then it's kind of almost blown out on that side. I think this one I did leave the exposure setting in the middle. This is exposed properly. It looks cool, so I don't really care that much. Obviously, I'm going to want to dial this in and get it a little more perfect in the future. But for my first day using this SX-70, that has been modified for 600 film, not bad. The Polaroid SX-70 Sonar. Without a doubt, one of the coolest cameras ever made, and I'm really looking forward to doing more with this camera, taking more pictures, really dialing it in, and I'll be showing you more of that in the future. Thanks for watching. I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.